everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into something that's honestly one of the biggest Apple TV updates we've seen in years. If you thought your Apple TV 4K was already one of the best streaming devices out there, just wait until you see what Apple has cooked up with tvOS 26. This update isn't just a small tweak or a couple of bug fixes. This is a complete transformation of how the Apple TV feels, looks, and works. And the best part? It's absolutely free for anyone who already owns an Apple TV. Now, here's the thing. Apple didn't just polish the surface with tvOS 26. They went all in with something they're calling the liquid glass design language. And trust me, once you start navigating through it, you'll realize how different and futuristic this feels compared to older versions like tvOS 18. Today, we're going to break down everything you need to know about this update, feature by feature. We'll talk about what's changed, how it compares to older versions and even rival platforms like Roku, Google TV, and Fire TV, and why this update might just make you fall in love with your Apple TV all over again. So grab your popcorn, because this is a deep dive into the top features of tvOS 26 that you definitely need to try right now. Section 1. The new liquid glass design. Alright, let's start with the biggest and most noticeable change, the brand new design language called liquid glass. Now, if you've been using Apple products for a while, you know Apple has always been obsessed with design. From the glossy iOS skeuomorphism days to the clean, flat look of more recent iOS versions, design has always been a way for Apple to stand out. But with tvOS 26, Apple has gone for something that feels alive, vibrant, and almost futuristic. So what exactly is liquid glass? Imagine navigating your Apple TV and instead of static menus or boring flat screens, you see floating, three-dimensional menus and windows. Everything feels like it's gently hovering on your screen. When you move around the interface, the transitions feel fluid, smooth, and almost tactile, like you could reach out and swipe through the air. This isn't just eye candy either. The whole point is to make the Apple TV feel more immersive, almost like you're interacting with a living piece of glass. Another really cool thing about liquid glass is how it handles transparency. A lot of menus now have translucent elements, so when you open up settings, for example, you can still see a blurred out version of whatever's playing in the background. This gives the interface depth. It's no longer just a flat screen overlaying another flat screen. Instead, it feels like layers of glass stacked together, letting you see what's happening behind the scenes while still focusing on the menu in front of you. Now, compare that to tvOS 18 or even competing platforms. Roku, for example, is functional, but let's be honest, it's clunky. It hasn't really evolved in terms of design. Google TV has a cleaner look, but it's not nearly as interactive or dynamic. Amazon's Fire TV tries to keep things bold and modern, but it still feels ad-heavy and cluttered. Apple's liquid glass blows all of them out of the water by focusing on aesthetic elegance and user experience. But it's not just about looks. The design changes actually impact how you use the Apple TV. Profile switching, for example, is now faster and smoother. In older versions, moving between different users' profiles could feel a bit awkward, with multiple steps involved. But now, you just hover over your profile icon, and the new liquid glass menu makes the transition instant. It's all about personalization. Your watch list, your apps, your Apple Music library, ready in just one click. Speaking of personalization, another standout detail is the cinematic poster art. This one is perfect for movie lovers. When you're browsing through shows or films, instead of tiny thumbnails or generic icons, you now get these beautiful, large format posters that fill the screen. It's almost like walking into a theater lobby and seeing movie posters lined up, pulling you into the experience before you even hit play. Combine that with the floating menus and translucent design, and it feels less like browsing a digital menu and more like flipping through a futuristic cinema wall. And here's a subtle but important point. Liquid glass also introduces softer edges and rounded corners throughout the interface. You might think, okay, rounded corners, big deal. But in practice, it makes the whole system feel more organic, more human, less mechanical. It's easy on the eyes, and it's one of those details that shows Apple's obsession with polish. From a usability perspective, this new design makes multitasking smoother too. For example, if you're watching a show and want to quickly check settings, the new floating panels don't completely take you out of what you're watching. They gently hover over the content, so you never feel disconnected. This is a big deal compared to older versions where every menu felt like a hard cut away from your content. And here's the kicker. Apple has designed this new UI with Apple Intelligence in mind. Even though most of those AI-powered features are rolling out later, the new liquid glass interface is future-proof. It's designed to integrate voice commands, smart recommendations, and predictive layouts in a way that feels natural, not forced. In other words, Apple isn't just redesigning for today, they're designing for what Apple TV will become in the next 2 or 3 years. So, to sum up this section, liquid glass isn't just a visual upgrade, it's a reimagining of the Apple TV experience. It makes navigation smoother, more immersive, and more personalized. It sets Apple TV apart from its competitors and lays the foundation for an AI-driven future. If you haven't updated to tvOS 26 yet, trust me, this design change alone makes it worth it. So here's how it works. Imagine you're hanging out with your friends. Maybe it's a weekend night or you're having a family get-together. In the past, Apple TV was more of a passive entertainment device. You'd stream Netflix, Apple TV Plus, or YouTube, and that was pretty much it. But with tvOS 26, Apple Music Sing transforms your Apple TV into a karaoke machine on steroids. When you launch Apple Music Sing, your iPhone becomes a wireless microphone. That's right! No need for clunky third-party mics, no setup headaches. You just connect your iPhone to your Apple TV, and boom, you're ready to sing along. The lyrics show up right there on your TV screen, perfectly synced with the music. And because Apple designed this feature from the ground up, the sync feels flawless. There's no awkward delay, no mismatched timing. It's polished in the way only Apple can deliver. But here's where it gets even cooler. You're not limited to just one person singing. Multiple iPhones can connect at once, which means you and your friends can turn your living room into a full-on karaoke party. You can take turns, sing duets, or even have group performances. And because it's running through Apple TV, the audio output is crystal clear, especially if you're using AirPlay-enabled speakers as your default audio setup. We'll talk about that audio upgrade later, but trust me, the sound quality makes a huge difference here, and Apple didn't stop there. They've added emoji reactions that appear in real time on your TV. So while one person is singing, the rest of the group can react with emojis from their iPhones. Imagine someone hitting a perfect note and suddenly a bunch of clapping emojis flood the screen, or someone messing up hilariously and you see laughing faces everywhere. It's a small detail, but it makes the whole thing feel interactive and fun. It turns karaoke night into a shared digital experience. Now let's pause for a second and talk about why this matters. One of the criticisms Apple TV has faced over the years is that, compared to gaming consoles like the PlayStation or Xbox, it doesn't have that same social multiplayer energy. It's always been more about consuming content individually. With tvOS 26, Apple is clearly trying to close that gap by making Apple TV more social, more engaging, and something you can enjoy together with people in the room. And Apple Music Sing is the perfect example of that shift. In fact, this ties into a bigger strategy Apple has been working on. They want Apple TV to be the centerpiece of your living room, not just a device you use for streaming. Think about it. Between FaceTime integration, HomeKit controls, Apple Arcade for gaming, and now this karaoke feature, Apple TV is evolving into something much bigger than a streaming box. It's becoming a family entertainment hub. Now let's dig a little deeper into the technical side. One of the reasons this works so smoothly is because tvOS 26 is built with low-latency AirPlay technology. In older versions, connecting your iPhone as a microphone would have been impossible without some kind of lag. But Apple has optimized the way devices communicate on the same Wi-Fi network, so your iPhone can act as a mic with almost zero delay. That's why it feels natural and responsive when you're singing. The other thing I love here is the queuing system. Multiple people can queue up songs from their iPhones, and the playlist automatically syncs to the TV. So you don't have to constantly interrupt the flow to pick the next track. It keeps the energy going and feels effortless. Again, this is Apple thinking through the small details that make a big difference, so yeah, Apple Music Sing might sound like just a fun extra, but it's actually a window into the future of Apple TV. It turns your device into a party starter, a family bonding tool, and a showcase for what the Apple ecosystem can do when everything works together. And honestly, after trying it once, you'll never look at your Apple TV the same way again.